Hi, everyone. This is the Mercedes Lucky Benedict show, and I'm so happy that everybody is here with us, watching us, and listening to us. And I can't thank you enough for all the support that is given to me through this wonderful audience. And I think that we get a lot of people watching or listening because it's like everybody I choose to be on this show is really like it's like somebody that resonates with me, and I think that what they are doing in the world is valuable and important. And so um that brings me to my special guest, who I met because of Archbishop Ronald Enright. And so from him, I was introduced to my guest, the wonderful Sister Lucie. Hi, Sister Lucie. How are you?
I'm good, Mercedes, and how are you?
I'm good. This might be our first time to actually talk.
I believe
You
so,
know,
yes.
it's very nice. So how are you tonight?
I'm wonderful. Yeah, it's a little chilly here. We're in Canada. We're just across from Detroit. So we're in the minus temperatures at the moment with some snow.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's
So,
cold.
yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you're really cold over there, but hopefully you're in a nice, warm, safe
Oh, we're
place.
warm inside. We're good.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So, do you like to go by Sister Lucie, or do you like to go by your whole name?
Oh, it depends what I'm doing. So if I'm in this ministry and we're doing work for the Order of Exorcists, then yes, I do. I like to go by Sister Lucie, but I also do other things, as I'm sure we'll discuss. But I also go by my last name, which is Belle Reeve.
Oh, okay. Very nice. That's a beautiful. You have an actually beautiful name.
Thank
You
you.
know, when you so it's so is it Sophia Marie?
It's Sister Lucie Sophie Marie.
Sophie Marie.
Yeah, and the last name Belle Reeve.
That's just beautiful. You have a beautiful name.
Thank you.
So, one of the things I definitely wanted to talk about was, well, there's several things.
And you froze.
um, Making and creating a better place and a better world for people, because you're actually out there really doing good and working on the good versus evil, as I kind of like feel like I when I look at what you're doing, I'm like, wow, this woman, I mean, you're the governor. I just got to read this. So of the Order of the Knights of Yahweh, you're the governor of the, I mean, that's like big.
Well, it's one of the governors. Yes,
It's
we
like
have five governors for the order.
so could you talk, just, you know what, let's just have you tell us a little bit. Just start wherever you want, because I'm going to be happy wherever you start. Where do you want to begin?
Well, I think as a child, I knew that I had some kind of a mission and a purpose. I always felt called by God to do something, and I wasn't really sure what it is, but it's becoming more evident now as I feel we're approaching, or I think we're well into the end times at this point. And I do feel that people are really struggling and they're looking for assistance with whatever demonic infestations, possessions that they're experiencing. And we have received so many messages that I just can't possibly keep up. And I want to say to anyone who's tuning in, who's been reaching out to us, it's just not even possible that we're able to respond to everyone as we would like. And we're doing our very best to get to everyone. We're looking at putting out some kind of a deliverance type session that will involve a very comprehensive program that will assist those who are looking for assistance from delivery from evil. So, as a child, I've always felt called by God. I've strayed off the path. I was born Catholic and I dabbled into other religions and New Age, but I learned so much from that. And it got me back into Roman Catholicism. Well, not Roman Catholicism, but the religious sense. and learning, all the things that we've gone through in order to help other people who are going through the same circumstances, as they've dabbled into the occult and new age, and helping people, get through those difficulties.
Mhm. Wow. Okay. So it's like, I mean, you're kind of speaking to my heart because we went through all this, and I know I think I might have told you, but I know I told Archbishop Ron that when I wanted to reach out and call for an exorcist, just like, how do you even do that? When it gets to the
Right.
point where you need something like that. So just to hear what you're saying and to hear that there's so many people that are reaching out at this time, which I totally believe that. And in a way, I'm actually glad to know that people are reaching out,
Yeah, it's
and
not
so
something widely discussed, right? People don't sit there and have coffee with their friends and say, well, I'm going to contact, the exorcist organization because I'm having some issues. Because a lot of people think that they're going to think they're crazy, and
yeah.
they just don't want it out there in public, and they don't even want to discuss it with their friends.
Right, right. And they don't. People don't want to talk about it. And even now that I'm on the other side of this, I
Mm,
still feel like people want to just like they still look at me funny just that I'm talking about this. So I'm
right.
just like I'm good. I understand, and I'm glad. I think it's interesting that you also said that you were part of the new age thing too. And I look at that as more metaphysical.
Mhm.
But so what was it that brought you into really going into, like how they say, diving deep back into this life?
Diving deep into like the order of exorcist
Yeah,
and what
to
we're
really
doing.
make the change. Yeah, when did you really start? When did you start? When did you decide to become a sister?
That was almost 2 years ago. So I attended, and I'm sure you met Archbishop Plato, who was on the first podcast, the debut
Okay.
episode of The Unseen Realm. And he approached our paranormal team, and we were going to go to a exorcism. And he asked if we would join him, and we did. And it was just so much of a calling that I pursued it, and it was suggested that I be consecrated in order to be, upfront, to be able to help others go through this. And it's just been as if I've been guided all along to be able to do this. And because I've had my own paranormal demonic experiences as a child growing up, so I can definitely relate. And I just felt the need to be able to help other people who were going through the same thing.
Wow. So this was just 2 years ago.
So I've been doing, yeah,
Wow.
so consecrated almost 2 years now, but I mean, we've been working with paranormal experiences, almost my entire life.
Wow. And so I may be silly, but what does consecrated mean as far as what you're saying? What is that in those terms? What does that mean?
So
Consecrated.
what I've done is I've made a vow to God. So you could be consecrated, make a vow for um, to be celibate, for poverty. But I've made just the vow because I have an existing family already, so I haven't been able to fully, become a nun, shall we say, and make all the vows. I've gone so far as to make the vow of obedience, which I am obedient to God. So I feel he communicates with me, and I follow what I'm being guided to do, and that is to help other people who are experiencing these types of events.
Oh, I understand. Okay, that's very interesting. So, and one thing I do like also of some of the people I'm meeting, Archbishop Ron and yourself, is that you're fully accepting that we actually have gifts of spirit like you have, where you're listening to
Right.
God and God is, and you could share that. Could you talk a little? I really think that's important for people to be able to understand that, and I probably am not always the best person to talk about it, but I think I am, but I think I'm a good person to talk about it. But I would really like to hear you talk about what you have your what about this, please.
So we call ourselves the Mystic Sisters, and we have gifts that we've had since we were children, as far as I can recall, where we would get visions and where we would get dreams or signs. And I find that since I connected with my good friend Angela, who is my paranormal partner in crime, we tend to work very well together. So we work in tandem on cases. We work together with paranormal investigations, and we find that we're able to heighten each other's gifts. So when we're working together, we seem to be able to, work on each other's, heighten each other's gifts. So any pieces she might be missing, then I provide them, and vice versa. So we find that putting them together kind of completes the puzzle. So when we're trying to solve a case, when we're trying to find out what's causing the issues in the home, we find that when we work together, it's quite heightened. So, but we have to be careful, because in the new age, as I've discovered too, when you get into things like mediumship, you have to be very careful, or channeling, because there's also entities who like to cloak themselves. And I've had this happen many times. And this is why I steer clear of anything regarding mediumship, because these entities can come across as very benevolent and loving. But when you delve
Mhm.
deeper into it, they actually are demonic, and then they will cause issues for you. So they like to present themselves as angelic, but they're not. So we have to be very
Yeah.
careful when
Uh,
we're communicating with the other side.
I'm going to stop right now because I'm getting a distortion in your voice. So I just, you know what? Let's just do a little prayer right now.
Okay.
So I'm just asking, dear God, dear Father, please clear the airlines and let us be able to talk and hear and listen to Sister Lucie. We're asking to just bless this show and cleanse and break any type of interference that we're getting. I'm asking us to begin now, and I give thanks for that. Thank you, in Jesus' name. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Thank you.
Amen.
Okay. Okay. So I totally understand what you're saying here. And can you tell us how, what's the difference that you feel like now that you have gone, a different level into this, when you have to deal with this type of activity, whether it's demonic or whether it's not, whether it's just flat out trickery, but there's different levels. What do you do differently now that you didn't do, say, 3 years ago?
I would say I don't even dabble in anything that even might be questionable. So I know that there are mediums and there are channelers, and I would recommend not even dabbling in that at all, because we open ourselves up to anything that could be cloaking. And I find that I sit in a place of meditation. I pray, and I find that I'm praying hours a day, and I get my
Mm.
guidance from God. And I don't communicate with any spirits, entities that might be coming to me. And I've had incidences where something angelic would approach me, and then I would just stay in that place of God presence and love. And then it's almost like it can't contain the cloak anymore. And then it is almost like it starts to glitch, right? So it's all becoming evident, where it just starts to, like, the matrix glitches. And then they can't hold that impression anymore. They can't hold the angelic presence. So then you see
Mm.
them for who they truly are.
Do you have you ever had it where all of a sudden, like, I see them when they're like walking up, like you see them like clearly, and then I know, and I say what I need to say, and then they just look at me, and then they start to walk away because they
Right.
know there's
Right.
things that
Because
I've
they know
used.
you've seen beyond the mask. Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
yeah, and it is a really, I think what you're saying is really important, actually. So when that happens, do you ever Oh, have you ever, so you've been tricked. Has this happened to you where you in the past, well, you were thinking, because it's happened to me, where you thought it was angelic, but it wasn't. And can you talk about that?
Well, certainly in the New Age, I've known lots of psychic mediums. I've known lots of psychics, and I've seen them shift before my very eyes. I've seen them try to communicate with deceased loved ones. So they believe they're communicating with deceased loved ones. And in fact, it ends up turning on them. And then
Yeah.
they end up becoming this manifestation right before my eyes where they're having the demon manifest inside them because they've made the invitation. They've invited the communication with the spirit. And then they would shift. Their eyes change, their expressions change, the way they communicate changes. So I choose not to even dabble. Like I know there are people who are missing their loved ones, and I know that's why it all starts and people reach out and they want to talk to their deceased aunts or passed on loved ones. And it's all with good intention, but we have to be very careful. Just like a Ouija board, we have to be careful when we're communicating with the other side. We don't know what's sitting there cloaked. And they like to present
Right.
themselves, and there's isn't there a scripture that says even Satan will cloak as an angel?
All right. Yeah,
So
exactly.
so they pretend that they are benevolent beings.
So as a paranormal investigator, and obviously you're a little bit different, you're a little higher level than just investigating. You actually go in and help remove spirits, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're in that field. So what would you say to people that are in that field, but you're in that field too? So how does that work for you, where you're in there, but so you're obviously in with looking for paranormal activity. So what makes it different from what you're doing to what others are doing?
I find that, the entertainment portion of the paranormal is not a good one. So when you have people that are going in, for the views and the, attention, and they go in and they make the invitation. So if they make comments such as, to the spirits, "Touch me," or "Move this," or, you're inviting that entity to do those things, and then you invite them into their life, and then they come and they follow you home.
Mm.
And then they that's and then oppression starts, right? So you have to be extremely careful what you do because we all have free will. And then once you open up that veil and you have that invitation, then you've just permitted that into your life. And I don't think that people realize it until it's too late. And that's when I have people reaching out to me when they've reached a point of something just happened. And then when we trace it back, we find out that there was some type of an invitation. So I would say anyone that's doing
Mm.
anything paranormal needs to be really careful, like Ouija boards. Of course, everyone knows about Ouija boards, right? Be careful. It's an invitation.
Right. Yeah, I was listening to well, somebody, because I'm doing the documentary, but part of what Truth Seeker was saying, he's in this documentary, is that it's an you have an open invitation, or it could be a family bloodline curse that
Right.
they're almost like that's your invitation. Could you talk a little bit about the difference, like what in your work have you seen with curses? And we know they're out there for people that, I always laugh at people. Oh, really? Curses? I'm like, oh, yeah. There's actually
Yes.
curses. I mean, you can go to Mexico or you can go to Peru, and they've got like you walk. Some I haven't seen it, but I've flight attendants have told me that they will walk out and there's all these tables and it says curses. They're just
Mhm.
like people out there putting curses on everybody, so that
Mhm.
yeah, it's real. Can you talk a little bit about that? What's the challenge of that for you? I mean, I know what it is for me, but what is it for you?
I think if we've looked back, even if we looked back 20 years ago, no one really talked about pagan or magic or any of that. It was more taboo discussion. But now it's out there, and people are more open, and
Yeah.
it's becoming more widely accepted. So it just becomes more open. And yes, the generational curses for sure. We're finding, so when Angela, my partner, and I, we tap into a picture, we do not do the invitation. So what we'll do is we'll study photographs, we'll study videos, and we'll look for signs. And there's always something that gives us some kind of an indication. So we might see, what that particular entity might look like, or it's a symbol. And that's when we have to do a lot of, working between the two of us and what that symbolism means and what could have possibly drawn it in. And that's
Mhm.
when we'll look in, and then we'll start asking. So it gives us a chance to open up a conversation with the client and ask them, okay, we're getting this symbol. Does this mean anything to you? And can you tell us about this? And then that's when we start talking about it. And that's when they'll start divulging and letting us know, oh, yes. And so, so many years ago, I did this, or I, I did a candle spell, or, and then that's when we'll start to get into the real, because if we don't solve the root, then
Yeah.
everything else is superficial, right? How
Right.
can the problem be solved
Right.
until we deal
So
with what
okay,
brought it in the first place?
exactly. And so this is neat. So you will actually you're almost like me, you're like a remote viewer then. You can look at a picture or you can look, is that right? So cuz
I
that's
wouldn't say
like,
so much a remote viewer, but I would get we get vision. So it's interesting because Angela and I will just go out, we'll go for a walk, and we'll just get symbols and signs in nature in the sky. Like there were times when we just see this whole scene play out in the sky. And we'll just sit there and we'll talk about it and we'll observe it and we'll say, okay, this is happening over here, and this figure's over here, and then we'll see signs. Like it sounds crazy, right? I mean, we'll just see signs in
no.
nature, and then we
Okay.
tie it into pictures, the photographs, and we tie it into impressions and their faces and dreams, and then we have visions, and then we just tie it all in together, and then we discuss it with the client, and then we start getting into where is this coming from.
Wow. That's yeah, see, that sounds really very interesting. And that seems like a very good way to do it. I think I like that. I like that you guys are working together. How long have you and she worked together?
We've been working together for 4 years now.
Wow.
four
So she
years
kind
Yeah,
of
we have our
came
channel.
into your
We
life. Go ahead.
Yeah, she came in at a very good time, is when we started, and we knew as soon as we met, we made a connection, and we knew that we were doing something together, and we've learned so much. We've learned so much through the years, and now we've gotten to a point where we're revamping our channel because we have a YouTube channel as well. And
Oh,
now we'll get into that at some point, but we're working on that still. And her and I work very well together. We study photographs, we study videos, and it just seems that we just get impressions, and it just it's like a clue, it's like a puzzle, and not every case is the
yeah.
same, so we never know what we're walking into.
Right. I think
We
it's
have
like
no
it
idea.
is. It is definitely like a puzzle. Like you have to find the puzzle.
It's a
Um,
mystery, yes.
Yeah, yeah, this is so neat, Sister Lucie. Now, how did you actually, meet Archbishop Plato and Archbishop Ron? Is you might have already told me and it went out my head.
That's okay. So we started almost 2 years ago. We went to an exorcism with Archbishop Plato, and that
Okay.
was Angela's and I's first, because our
Oh,
paranormal
that's
team was
right.
invited to go out, and we were
Okay.
there to assist, provide our intuitive impressions, and assist with the salt and holy water and oil throughout the house. And
Wait,
from
so
there, like, we just had a calling, and we just knew this was what we were supposed to do. And then that's when we got connected with Archbishop Ron with the Order
oh
of Exorcists.
yeah, so you did tell me that. I just get
Mm.
like so
Okay.
much information. But oh yeah, so okay. And was that in Canada?
Well, I'm
Were
in
you
Canada. Angela and I are in Canada, though
okay?
we do a lot of our work remotely.
Yeah.
But of course, in person is so much better. but we've assisted other people remotely, however we can.
How can somebody find you? How can they, so would they, well, when we, before we end, we'll make sure that they have something that they could reach out to you, because if you do work remotely like I do, then it makes it a little bit easier in many ways, because you can, we or you guys too can actually see things without actually having to be there at all
Right.
times.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so we have our well, I have 2 channels. I have one with, Archbishop Plato called Glory and Deliverance, and what we post on prayers, devotions, topics, and, we're now going to be releasing a deliverance program because we found that we just can't keep up with your requests, and then we find that there's pretty much a standard to follow along, so we're going to do something quite generic where people can tune in and they can follow along, and it gives like a step-by-step instructions. So we're working on that and we're hoping to have that done in the next couple weeks. Also with Angela and myself, we have a channel called the Queens of Sacred Kaleidoscope, and that's evolved over the years. And now we're becoming more into the reading, the photography, the impressions, the signs, in order to help people and assist them, as well as now we're getting into the preparatory, it's like apothecary, the botanical, self-sustaining part of it. So we're just starting to tap into that now.
I'm not
So
sure what
like,
that means.
well, like natural. So it'd be like, because we don't know what's going on in the world right now. So if there ever comes a time where we need to be more preparatory, that we could have, natural remedies on hand. So we'll
Oh,
be providing, recipes and things that you can do to be prepared and have your own natural supplies on hand.
oh yeah, I love that. Yeah. It's important, and so many things, like even dealing with this type of energy, you can use, I mean, salt. Like I use salt. In fact, that's important. I think it breaks the energy off things. Do you believe in the holy salt? And I'm sure you do.
Oh,
The holy.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we use it all the time. We have the holy salt, the holy water, the holy oil.
And there's several different thoughts on this, but I used to think that when I was starting to look for an exorcist, that I had to go somewhere and get special oil, and I had to go somewhere and find this salt. And then when Bill Bean helped us, definitely, I mean, I knew I had the salt before, but I realized about salt. But we ended up doing holy oil on every door, every
Mhm.
mirror, every window, but in the door and outside the door, all through every house we had, every place here. And we blessed that salt and that oil. In fact, I found a bunch of it just the other day. I'm like, oh, there's some more of it. So I'm good. We'd had a batch left. How do you, so like, you like to help people to make things, where you could help them that way. What is your recipe for how to make holy oil?
Well, that comes from a priest. So Archbishop
Right.
Plato does supply, and what he'll do is, if necessary, will make a package and deliver it. But the problem is we're in Canada, so not everything ships internationally because a lot of the people we deal with are in the States. So sometimes we might direct people to go to their local church. So you can get holy water at any Roman Catholic church. So you can get, your items from there.
Okay. So
Mhm.
you really recommend that? Like, well, we had, Bill helped us with ours, and so we've always just had that. So I've actually never gone to the next level to think about it from anybody else, because we have him.
Mhm.
That so actually, that is something that you would say to do, and I thought that sounded about right, honestly.
Yeah, it is helpful. Yeah, to put that around your house, and but then there's also we have to get to the root of the issue. And how did this happen in the first place? And usually there's some void, right? The people have become apostate. If you look at our nation, people have turned away from God. We've turned away from having prayer and the Bible in schools and everything across the nation. And people wonder why they're having these issues. Well, God can only protect people when they put God into their lives. He respects free will. So once we start pushing God out, then how can he protect everyone? We're not having a prayer life. We're not including God into our lives. And people don't believe in God. And some of them totally disrespect him. So,
Yeah.
and then the people are having issues and they don't understand why. So there's lots of foundation issues that we need to address. And that's what the program will be all about, is bringing prayer back and making reconciliation with God, because there's some sins that have taken place.
Yeah, and I think people do. They feel like I don't know, Sister Lucie. What So I understand both sides. I really do, because I wasn't so sure about all of it until until I started actually seeing the destruction that was happening in my life. And this isn't even with Bill. I mean, this is before that, when I had this other stuff happening. But it was the only thing that was actually working was just prayer. Or
Mhm.
people kept, like, almost like angelic beings would just pop up out of nowhere, and I'm like crying or so. And so it was almost like something is happening. And so I think it almost gets to a point where everyone has to find it. I mean, you have to find it yourself. I mean, you know what? You have to walk the walk. And if these people don't, if they're not open to that, then it just may not be them. I used to worry about that. I used to think, well, how can I help all these people? But if they're not there, then you can only do so much. You
Right.
can
If they
only
don't believe
protect
in
them.
God, if they don't believe in God, then how can they come to you for help? Because you're offering them
Right.
prayer. And if they don't believe in it, then how will that help them?
Right. Well, I think the one thing that helps is if once they ask for your help, that means that there is a part of them that is
Mhm.
open to that, right? So
Yeah.
I think what you're doing also, the fact that you actually took a step, a big one, to 2 years ago to become consecrated, to become this bigger part of you, then now you're able to reach a wide variety of people. Like, that's what I mean when I was learning about you, and I was like, this is actually amazing, what the steps that you have taken to become the part of you right now, this you. But you're also a person that just a few years ago was a was you're walking in these realms of where regular people are. And
Mhm.
so you're very understanding of all types of backgrounds.
Well,
And,
because
and you're an artist.
it's a very slippery slope. So you have to be careful, because we go into the new age and we feel, we're doing this. And I'll tell you, I got into the new age because it helped to heal me. So it was like, you do affirmations. So it sounds innocent enough, right? And you go into the healing modalities and you do all these things to help yourself. And then you find out, and then people get into readings and tarot and divination and necromancy, and then you have to be really careful. It's a slippery slope. And then people find themselves, and then they're like, oh, what happened? And then it just takes them somewhere where they weren't expecting to. Even though they had good intentions, it still took them somewhere because they were communicating with something that they thought was angelic but wasn't.
Right. And so the big part on that with me, I'll tell you what, was there I've been working with people for a long time doing this and doing my work for Dr. Swidler. And so, but there came a point on this particular property where I just assumed that they were I knew who they were. I knew what it was. but I was so wrong, Sister Lucie.
Mhm.
I would, because I was so in tune with nature and so in tune, and then I'd be in that bedroom, and then I could at night when they at night that's when they kind of would come and they just felt like almost like butterflies all around,
Yeah.
like such a light, and it just almost like it just felt, oh, that's like, it felt comforting. But when it came time for the Dead Files show, and I had drawn this thing, this like what it looked like, well, that was what was drawn was what I was seeing, but it
Mhm.
was sucking life out of me.
Mhm.
And it's true. It was
Mhm.
I was actually at that time, I was becoming septic. And it was right. I mean, like when you see that picture, I mean, I like freaked. I was like totally crying because I'm like, oh my God, like that is when I became so afraid, because I was like, how in the world did I get tricked? And
And
that so
sometimes they will present themselves as innocent children asking for help.
yeah,
And I've heard this many times, and they come in and they're children, so then you think, "Oh, it's a child, an earthbound that's looking for, help to cross over," right? And you have to be
yeah.
careful because in one case, it turned out to be a demon, and because that individual opened up and wanted to help this girl, ended up being a demon and jumping her and possessing her. So,
Oh yeah.
have to be very cautious when you're
Yeah.
communicating with the spirit world.
Yes. And so that is one of the things here. There's all these, there still is, but I think that's like gone like it was. But there were children. They show up as children, and
Yes.
they talk like children, and they throw rocks like children, and they laugh like children, and they're like scaring people, like children. I mean, they're children. So yes. So that is why does it, because it's an innocent, like it
Well, and
looks so
as a
innocent.
mother, especially when you're a woman, you're a mother, and you just very much are very nurturing, and you see a child, you'd want to help them. So they would cloak themselves as whatever they feel your weakness might be.
What do you feel about uh, entities that can trap other entities? Like a curse or something, like something where other entities are stuck because of an oppressed larger entity. Has that ever happened in your life?
Well, we find that the demonic and the earthbounds are very much together. So I would say the majority of cases, I find that they do work together. We find that the earthbounds might be trapped for a particular reason, so it might be attached to the land or the property, the home, or the people. And then when you get the demonic involved, then they feed off the earthbound spirits. So there's this energy, right? So they're looking to feed. They get more powerful as they're feeding off. Look at your equipment. You get equipment drain. So when you're on an investigation, your equipment drains because they're trying to pull from an energy source. So the same with earthbound spirits, and the same if you've experienced that kind of activity, why you might feel so completely drained. I've had it where I've been completely drained just being in the presence because they pull. They pull from various sources.
Right. Yeah, that just keeps them filling up. Do you
Mhm.
ever use, you're doing great, by the way. Thank you so much for sharing all this
Well, thank
information.
you.
Have you ever gone in and done the paranormal investigations where you use equipment, or worked with other groups that do that? I know that part of the exorcist on what he is looking for are people to work along with um, these the
Mhm.
exorcism group.
Yes,
So
so
do what?
Angela and
How does
I
that?
Yeah, Angela
Yeah.
and I do that. We do the paranormal portion of it, though we're not so much into where before we might use equipment or, um, certain devices that might be able to pick up on things. We're totally tuning into our gifts at this point, where we get impressions, we get signs. That way, we're not tapping in so much into the realm where we're inviting it into our space, we're just getting an impression like an observer.
Right. So
So
like
that way
you
we're
can
not
kind of,
tapping into it. deeply.
Okay, so just like getting the impressions. And then
We're
how do
getting
you
impressions.
what do you do to keep that from following you? I mean, is there a certain routine that you use?
Yes, so it is certainly something that we have to work on daily. We have maintenance. We do our spiritual baths. We do our I do maintenance constantly, and praying is huge. Okay, we pray. I pray for hours a day, especially when I'm involved in something very intense. And just keeping yourself as virtuous as possible too, because then they try to find your weakness. So if you have unforgiveness, if you have rage, then it keeps them attached to you. It
Yeah,
draws them in. So we're just extremely cautious to ensure that we're living as virtuous a life as we can.
right. What about when you have other family members? So, like when they start to go attacking your family members or a weak spot in your family, would that be what would you say about that?
Well,
If you're
because
keeping, if you're keeping,
we're in the front lines, right? We're in the front lines, which means it affects our family, it affects our home. So I ensure that not only am I protected, but my family is protected. So I ensure that even my own child, we do our prayers. We ensure that we do what we need to do around the home. So I'm constantly blessing the home and clearing the home. It's just like hours, sometimes hours a day, especially when we're involved in something very intensely.
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's like I like the word that you just used with maintenance. I've heard that say that that's how it works. You know, you always have to be always doing it, and people think, well, why? And I was like, well, if you've lived this way, if you understand what's happened and you like almost die or
That's
whatever,
right.
you figure out like, well, if this is keeping us safe, then this
Yes.
is what we do. And so yeah, so wow, it's like this is, I don't know, this one kind your this conversation is, I don't know, is really good. I appreciate you saying all this stuff with me.
I can equate
Oh,
it to being in war. So I feel that we're at the front battle lines and we're going to get hit with shrapnel. We're going to be, in the aim of fire. And we have to be protected as much as possible. So we have to be skilled and we have to be trained. And, no different if we were going off to war. We would have to be doing our skills and practicing and making sure that we have our armor on. So it's constant training. You don't walk into something like this and not do any skills or any protection.
mhm. And you know what? I think that's what so many people, and I did that. I didn't know back then. So I
Well,
mean, it
no, we
takes
don't
time
know
to learn.
until we get hit. Right.
Yeah. So if you survive it, but so so when you do the armor of God, like do you say that prayer
Mhm,
of the armor of God? Now,
mhm,
what's so interesting is like one of the things that I was blessed to be able to see was all of a sudden I'd be working on somebody and I would see parts of them in armor. So it'd
mm.
be armor that was yucky, like, and so you'd have to go, we have to clean that and fix that. But it was like, why do I keep seeing parts with armor? And that's when the armor of God came was
Oh.
come started coming to me because I didn't know about the armor of God. And so God has a great way, or of sharing, of creating things so you really learn about the armor of God. So I believe we all have an armor, and sometimes it's just part of that self that we have to get that all, get that junk off of it that is covering it. And then
Mhm.
when we get ourselves raised up our vibration, then we are shining the armor of God. So I love that so you do that every day. I didn't mean to go on a tyrant on that. Sorry. But so do
There's
you
daily
so,
practices that we do, yes, and especially when we're dealing with a case, we're definitely going to go in there as armored as possible, and that's prayer. It's a lot of things, and just being emotionally stable. Like, we certainly wouldn't wanna walk into a situation where you just ended up with an argument with someone and, you're open, you're vulnerable. So we have to go in as centered as possible.
Can you talk about fasting for God? Because we do fasting. I felt called to do that once a month, fasting for God and
Mhm.
for America. That's how it started. Um, so I know a lot about fasting, and I've learned a lot about it. So, do you practice spiritual fasting for any reasons?
I have. So, if I'm working with someone, then I would do that. I feel it strengthens my connection with God, and it also detaches yourself from the physical body because we're trying not to be of this physical world. So I feel it helps to transcend the physical realm,
Oh, I
and I
like the
feel
way you just said that.
it gets us on a higher level spiritually. So I do feel it's beneficial.
Very good. And I agree with you. Like I think whenever like if I find that sometimes when I'll do a fast, then the next day someone will come in for me to work on them and I'm like, "Wow, I'm so glad I fasted because I felt like it
Mhm.
lifted me to where I could see clearer." Um could you talk about like what is your goal and plans for, like, I know you've talked a little bit about it, but now you're on with Archbishop, working on the unseen realm, and you've got a lot of things you're working on. Is that kind of like is there like a bigger picture, a goal for all of that to combine, or you like the different roads and they all kind of join together?
I believe so because I believe ever since we've been on this path, it's just been one avenue after another. And it started with Angela and myself. So we started honing on our gifts. And then we started with working with Archbishop Plato. And now we're working on the steps for the deliverance. And that'll be coming out shortly. And then we did the unseen realm. So we're starting to help others that are having issues come forward and trying to get exorcists in the area to help them.
Yeah.
Um, and the Order of the Knights of Yahweh is a spiritual warfare group. So we are recruiting for prayer warriors and prayer knights because prayer is very powerful. So we have them assist in our ministry in exorcism, and we have them pray along with those that are going and doing exorcism.
Oh, I love that. That's very good. It's really good because I think the more, well, we're where we gather together, then it
Mhm.
just raises that up. So they do have. Do you believe that, like, they? I know they do, but I want to know about you. But like, do you believe that they know that there is a group, there are groups of people that are really rising up through this time that understand what's actually happening?
Oh, sure. Oh, you mean like Warriors of God?
Yeah, like a lot of people are
Yes.
coming to
Yes, they're
understand.
I think people are awakening and they're realizing what their mission is here on earth at this time.
Yeah. You know what do you feel about, okay, so like the all, they're all saying that the aliens and different, and I do believe do you believe in UFOs and things of that nature?
I do, yes.
Yeah. So what I'm wondering is like that I think that's where people might feel as if they're like, well, if there's that, then is there really God? And so I believe that that is all part of it, the whole thing. Like, I believe that this whole thing is a part of God, like that is even a bigger part of God that maybe we have to accept, we have to understand. You don't understand what I mean?
It's very vast, right? God created everything. God created the universe. God created the earth. God created absolutely everything. So they just happen to be a portion of it.
Right, right. I know there's just so many things. There's so many things going on in our world right now. And how about what would you recommend for somebody, like, just calling you and reaching out and saying, I need help? What would be your first steps to tell that person?
Well, we don't do anything without a thorough investigation, but we always recommend prayer. I mean, prayer is going to go along with any case, no matter what you're doing. And we get a lot of times where people tell us, "Well, the voices are telling us it's not working," and because they're liars and they don't want you to believe that it's working because they want you to stop. So you don't believe the voices, you pray. Pray is huge, bigger than people even realize.
Yeah.
And then
Whenever,
forgiveness is huge too. A lot of people hold on to unforgiveness, and that just keeps them there. They can't get past it because if they're hanging on to unforgiveness or rage, then it's just going to keep hooking into them.
yeah, and I think that's where that's what we needed. I needed to understand that, on in this scale about forgiveness and and I really wasn't allowing that part of Jesus. Like, I understand it because nothing else
But
took
now
that
you
away.
do. You've
Yeah,
experienced it and now you know, right? Yeah.
yeah,
But you have to go
yeah,
through it. That's the thing.
yeah. And so I just, yeah. So it's like I think you got to walk the walk. You got to go through it and you got to figure it out.
Mhm.
So on, I know we've got a few minutes left, but I wanted to kind of mention your art.
Mhm.
We'll have you back again, but you are an artist, and is that something that you had really pretty much done your whole life?
Yeah, so as a child, I've always done art, and, ne through the years, I've illustrated children's books, I've done things for the school board, I've done commissioned portraits for people. It's very time consuming and it doesn't pay the bills, so, it's something that I can't stay in for too long, but I do find it very meditative and I do find it very contemplative, so I do enjoy it very much. I, just don't do it as much as I would like because I have other
Right.
things that I need to tend to.
Right. Well, and I really enjoyed working with you on the Unseen Realm,
You as well, thank you.
collaborating with you. Yeah, it was neat because you're real quick and you're, just we're easy to collaborate with on that little piece that I help with. So I really appreciate that. So let's kind of go through. We've got about 10 minutes. So I would like to know where let's name off again where people can find you at and how they can reach out to you.
Okay, so we have the channel with Angela. That is called Queens of Sacred Kaleidoscope. And that I know that's a tough one. I have a hard time spelling kaleidoscope. So if you look up Queens of Sacred Kaleidoscope, it's on YouTube. We're just revamping that in our new, we've just, this whole year has just been new everything. So we're just changing it because we've been together for 4 years. So we're just making it the way we wanted it to be. And you can look that up on YouTube. We're also on Glory and Deliverance YouTube channel with Archbishop Plato and myself. And we, like I said before, we do a variety of topics, prayers. We have Lent coming, so we're going to have a Lenten series coming, as well as if anyone's looking for the deliverance program, we're going to be offering. We find that there are deliverance programs out there, but they're just really quick and, they may be an hour and they're just one session, but there's really a lot of work to be involved and it's not superficial and it's not a quick fix. And some people think it'll happen overnight, but remember it took us that long to get to where we're at, that it's going to take some time, right? Like no different than someone who was looking to lose weight, right? It took time to get to where they're at. So it's going to take time to be able to work through that. Also, we
Mhm.
have the Unseen Realm, as you're aware, with Archbishop Ronald File Enright, and that's on his YouTube channel as well. And with the Order of the Knights of Yahweh, if anyone is interested, we do have we do have a Facebook group, but if anyone is interested, you can put in your reply to the email address Yahweh Knights, which is YHWH Knights, KNIGHTS at gmail.com.
Thank you very much, and I hope everybody reaches out to you. um I just think what you're doing is great, and I please say hello to your partner. I hope she's watching, the one that, and your
Well,
family.
well, yeah.
Blessings to your family for, and thank you so much for your good work and trying to help people. I
Thank you. You
really,
as well.
really
You as well. Thank you.
thank you. And reminds me, I don't know if you've ever heard of Derek Prince. Did you
I've
ever
heard
hear?
of the name, yes.
when I that was one of the things that was downloaded to me a couple of years, 3 years ago, and wow. So, he was all about deliverance and
Mhm.
helping people all over the world. And that's actually kind of where I got the prayer and fasting, because I was like reading and watching his stuff. So I really recommend him as well, because people can really learn by his all of these videos and all of these things, to learn that we have the ability to do our own deliverances.
Mhm.
Yes, you may need to call in a Bill Bean, you may need to call in a Jason McLeod, uh, people like those, Ron, Archbishop Ron, yourself. But there are things that we can do, and God gives us that to say that we can do that.
Mhm.
That
Absolutely.
we can cast them out. We can say no. People used to always go, well, all you got to do is just tell them no and raise your vibrational frequency. So, like, well, how many times can I, like, how many times did we,
Some
try?
people they're in way too deep, and they don't know what to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes you need more, but just the fact that you have those words. Because I tell you what, when Bill first, he didn't help us at first, but his assistant gave us prayers,
Mhm.
his specific prayers, which we were using prayers, but we weren't using prayers like that. And
Right.
it did start changing, because all of a sudden it's like we're really going for the authority of
That's
what
right.
that stuff was. And one thing, do you think that there's so what I this is what I think, that there's different layers, like we live in a lot of people live in where the Native Americans lived, or if you go over to Mexico, there's different things here, those are the places by us. But those spirits, they're really about that. The Native Americans have their traditions, they have their things for centuries, for however
Mhm.
long. So
Mhm.
I feel like they had, things would come in and they would work for that. But there, whatever was here was tied to, we needed that. We needed a deliverance to kick it out.
Right.
So then you
Absolutely.
find, yeah, so
Yeah.
there's different, and people will even, oh, I don't believe that either. But I'm just like, well, whether you believe it or not, I mean, that's what happened.
Right.
Like, that was the thing that actually changed it. And so we keep that up. We have a tradition now here that is what we do. We don't force everybody to, that comes in to stop at the gate like we do and do the Lord's Prayer. But we used to, but now, or we let them know, like, you should probably do that if you cross
Right.
over that line.
Right.
So yeah, so I love that you're I really resonate with you, always have. So I really appreciate it
I
that you're
resonate
here.
with you.
Do you feel like that too? Like that, so that's why I'm like, cause let me just ask you, like, we have a few more minutes, but if you say someone says, well, I do this, and like I use the sage. I use crystals, won't that work? What would you
I
say?
would like to say that there is a higher power, and we get a lot of people who dabble into paganism, the occult, and there's different gods, and different religions, and there is the higher power, and that's God and Jesus Christ, and that's what we use. We're a Catholic ministry, and we use the highest power.
Well, I'm
It's not
glad you're
just it's not satanic, it's not just Luciferian, it is a variety of things that we deal with.
right. And I thank you so much. And I'm not down on anybody with the crystals, or that's what I used, and it worked for
Mhm.
a long, long
That's
time.
right,
And
it did.
I
Yep,
still use it. I'm in there
yep.
saging all the time, because I know it breaks the energy. But when I had to do what I had to do, we had to do that. We
Mhm.
had to call out the big guns. We had to do something different.
Yes.
So I applaud you for being who you are. Mwah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank
so
you so much,
much.
Mercedes.
And thank you so much for being on the Web Radio Network. We are produced by the Web Radio Network, Stan Fikes. Teresa Fikes. Both of them are amazing. We are looking for sponsorship, people. We would love to have some sponsors for this amazing show so we could have, well, we're going to do it no matter what, but have people like you on, Sister Lucie. So, anyway, thank you so much. God bless everyone. And thank you
God
so much for
bless you. Thank you so much, Mercedes. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.